Just thinking away, it's probably time that I should throw two bob in about this whole Russia collusion thing. Because when you're in your American media bubble, there's some things that you won't hear that are in media bubbles outside of America. And, you know, while you're in an American media bubble, all your thoughts, if they're not independent thoughts, are sort of only ones that can exist inside the bounds of that bubble, inside that bubble, fenced off by what's allowed in that bubble. That is until, of course, you get some real, true independent thought. And I've got a few ideas here that might really rock your boat a little bit, but I think it's something that probably should be mentioned. Now, they're always going on about Russia and the DNC server and the blah, 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 blah. Funnily enough, that same server, the FBI never actually got hold of it and checked out what was on it. You got computer analysis there, you're ripping through Wiener's laptop and all this sort of stuff. Well, what about the DNC server? Rip through that, see what went on there. Secondarily, like a lot of people know who have been computer nerds for years, like myself, you know, I'm not as much of a nerd now. Well, not really, compared to what I was in my teenage years. In the 90s, I could make some computers do some pretty whack shit. And friends of friends, could literally do some things that were really bordering on illegal. Well, they were outright, involving hacking, but that wasn't me. But it's quite well known that you can make a hacking attack look like it's come from anywhere. But aside from all that bullshit, the most interesting thing is that it's always Russia hacked it, Russia leaked this information, blah, 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 blah. Oh, Russia is WikiLeaks, WikiLeaks is Russia. No, bullshit. WikiLeaks is a guy who is basically, a computer genius for all intensive purposes, that grew up in the city that I work in. So the Russians hacked the elections? Or did an Australian hack the elections? And is it really hacking if you... you know, they hacked into the server, but did they compromise the election? And is it really compromising an election if they find some very ugly truths and tell some very hard to swallow truths about, you know, some pretty dodgy stuff? The other thing is this Trump dossier come from England. So, in fact, there's even more that old Peter Strzok, who you mightn't have hoped to hear the honest truth from, has come out and said that the guy who's the head of the Department of Justice, whose wife works for the same organisation who wrote up the dossier, was the one to hand documents to the dossier or stuff relating to the dossier to other high-up officials in the Department of Justice. Deep state much? You know? Holy smoke, you got a British organisation who wrote this thing up and, well, you know, it's the head of the Department of Justice's wife works for them, and then all of a sudden, bing, bing, we're onto a Russian collusion thing. And fuck me, they can actually trace it back to person by person. This one wrote it, who worked at the same place this person did, who handed it to the husband, who handed it to the people who worked underneath him, and boom, 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 boom. They got an absolute step-by-step, person-by-person linkage for this Trump dossier, which came from England. So, did England hack the election? Just a thought, you know. Were they interfering with it? So it could have been, I'm probably using the word hacking too much, but was it the Australians from WikiLeaks who interfered with the election? Was it the British who wrote out the Trump dossier? Did they interfere with, Trump being a straightforward candidate, or did they stuff things up for him there? Is it all right to stuff up an election? No, that's called interference. You really sort of wonder all these things. And at the end of the day, Rand Paul comes out and a couple others come out and say a few things, and it's, oh, America could never mess with anyone's elections. Oh, leftists can't handle that idea. If they had a guy there, former CIA or something like that, 81 times the US has interfered in other foreign elections. 81 times. So when you hear about all this election interference stuff, it's really like Kim Kardashian complaining about someone else being a drama queen. It's just, all you got to do is look back at the 70s and the 80s in South America alone. Augusto Pinochet was put in by America. The fucking, Nicaragua, your rebels there, not your Sandinistas, but you're the other side and all that. That was all funded by America. Contras, that's the ones I'm thinking of. That was actually funded by America, but the funding come from secret weapons deals with Iran. Talk about make a shitstorm. But you start going through all these different ones that are going on for donkey's ages, all through the 70s, all through the 80s in South America. And I tell you what, there was barely a bloody election in South America that didn't have some CIA interference during the 70s and 80s. And heaven forbid, a couple of things got out about, somebody might have meddled with the American election. Oh, heaven forbid. Coming from a country who's meddled with other people's elections 81 times. In fact, apparently they even messed with Canada's last election during the Obama administration to allow Justin Trudeau to get in. It's really like the pot calling the kettle black over and over. And everybody is worried about the integrity of their elections, in any country. But when you look at it all, America is probably the world's worst defender in interfering with other people's elections. So if it ever were to come back on you, who the fuck are you to whinge about this sort of stuff? Considering how much you're willing to dish it out, but then can't handle it happening to you. You know what I'm saying? It's just very strange, very hypocritical like that, But anyway, that's just a few thoughts from the other side over here in Australia.